Welcome to Studio 58A live here at the Jamaica Information Service, our discussion program coming to you live on Facebook and Instagram. I'm your host, Vaughn Davis. Thank you to everyone joining us online wherever you are. We really do appreciate it. Thank you very much for your eyes. I'd like how we have your attention. Do us a favor now. Share this video with a friend or 2 or 5,000 so we can have a very lively discussion. And as you watch, remember to send in your questions and your comments so we can put them to our guest. Now, in a perfect world, after every child is born, the parents would get a comprehensive instruction manual explaining how to manage them at every stage of their development. Unfortunately, this is not a perfect world. And I can say without any fear of contradiction that being a good parent is one of, if not the hardest job known to man. It's mostly trial and error while hoping for the best, capable of making you feel outstanding highs when your children are doing well, and frustrating lows when they behave poorly. In Jamaica, the government has created an organization to help parents do this job as best as possible. It's appropriately called the National Parenting Support Commission. And its CEO, Kaysia Kerr, is with us today to discuss Parent Month. Yes, this month we're in, November, is Parent Month. Stay tuned to hear what has been done so far and what else to look out for. And we'll also be bouncing some parenting scenarios off Miss Kerr to see how she thinks they should be handled. And believe me, we try hard to make them as difficult as possible. Because, you know, this is 2019. The parenting issues that they're dealing with nowadays are not quite what we were dealing with maybe even 20 years ago. All right, so welcome, Ms. Kerr. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Vaughn. Thanks for having me again.
All right, so just to kick things off, let's start with Parenting Month. What have you guys been doing so far, and what's the response been like, and how's it been going, essentially?
So November, as you said, is National Parent Month, and it's such a busy month because there are other entities that also recognize the month as their month. We have no hang-ups, no qualm. We just pull everybody in and partner because whether it's Diabetes Awareness Month, whether it's Youth Month, whether it's Substance Abuse Awareness Month, whatever it is, chances are there's a parent involved somewhere.
Right, that's true.
So the umbrella then is Parent Month. It has been gruelingly wonderful, or wonderfully grueling.
Yeah, true.
Because we have so many activities planned. We kicked off November 1 appropriately with the launch of Parent Month, and that I believe was very successful. We had a church service at Hope Fellowship on the 3rd, and every Tuesday through to Thursday, we aim to conduct maybe 20 or so workshops across schools for parents. And in between all of that, we have regional workshops as well. This is where we really bring a whole lot of people together. Our target is 100 to 150 parents. So we do a mass workshop. And these are supported by other partners like the National Council on Drug Abuse, the Human Trafficking in Persons unit down by OCA, that's the Office of the Children's Advocate, that's where they're housed. And then we have Diabetes Association of Jamaica. We do free health checks. They get a plethora of information. And of course, we couldn't have Parent Month without talking about parenting.
Right.
So we push the pillars under the Be the Influence campaign this year. Show love, show empathy, show respect. We have also had 2 parent villages already. One was in Steertown. And the other was last week, and it was in Sam Sharp Square, Montego Bay. That was quite an interesting space to be in because I didn't feel...
it's very outdoor and very, it's kind of a different kind of environment.
And I just had to submit myself to God and say, take charge. Because there's really no control over, because people are just naturally milling about. But it was really a successful day. The rain held. It rained so much the night before. The rain held. This Saturday, we're in Westmoreland at Independence Park, staging the final of 3 parent villages. And that's supported by about 19 partners. So there we have booths with all kinds of information. We have health checks. And of course, we're talking about parenting for the entire time that we're there. We start the booths are erected at about 8. People start coming in. But we kick off officially at about 10 and we end just about 4:30. And so we immerse people in the village with all kinds of information to empower them so that essentially their parenting skills can improve.
So what are some of the things that you're talking about in these settings? What are some of the topics that you discuss and, ideas you're bouncing, that kind of thing?
Oh boy. So primarily we're pushing be the influence, show love, show empathy, show respect. But of course the pillars, for the last 2 years, we also bring in those as well. So we talk about corporal punishment, or as we like to say at the Commission, positive parenting. So we've switched it. It sounds better. It's less controversial, and people are more willing to listen to us. Once you say corporal punishment, some people get their backs up.
Yeah, that's true.
They get very defensive. So we talk about positive parenting. Of course, we're talking about substance abuse as it relates to the cocktails that children are making, the lean purple drink, scissor. We're talking about human trafficking. I can't help but recall one presentation that we had from the persons from the human trafficking division. And what I didn't know, I learned something important that I like to share, that sometimes when you see those children at the stoplights, they're actually being trafficked. And
That's
I
true.
didn't know that. We take it for granted that,
they're just from somebody, some home that people take care of them and love them and so
That's
on.
right.
They're just
And
being disobedient.
That's right. And they have a quota of money that they must meet. So that was very insightful for me. So the information can be very eye-opening and you cannot hear it enough. So I think it's important for parents to come and get the information. We have Alpha Primary, who has been our strong support too. We talk about nutrition and health. Now, interestingly, Alpha Primary was one of those schools on a pilot project that the Ministry of Education had that looked at healthy nutrition. So how are we going to put together healthy meals for children? And so they were under the school feeding program. So they have all these wonderful menus. So they come, they prepare meals, they give free sampling, they teach parents how they should prepare the meals using everyday products, cost-effective products. And so we have that support. We have the persons from Children's First, Bashibus. They do HIV testing. They talk about tours, especially your prospective parents, about, HIV. I was pretty impressed that so many persons were volunteering to take the test. There was free blood pressure, blood sugar. I mean, there's so many. We had Early Childhood Commission looking at how to stimulate children through play. I mean, so many.
So a lot of
so
stuff.
many persons.
Lot of
Yes,
stuff
man,
talking
a
about.
whole
So
lot
you
of
find
things all
that
day.
parents are participating and coming out. I mean, a lot of the time people see these things. They don't necessarily just get up and lend their support. They pass through, say, just give some lip service and then leave.
That's
But do
the
you find
thing.
people sticking around?
Well, Vaughn, because we know this, we have a group of persons we call parent mentors, and they're literally going to parents and pulling them over to the booths. So we're not leaving it up to them to, like you rightly say, in Sam Sharp Square, some would have been passing. So the mentors and I would go approach them nicely, and they would come over and spend some time with us at the booths, get the information, ask questions. Some of them had questions about services that they had issues accessing. And so, like, for example, PATH and so on. So we're able to talk to them and to help them what they need to do to navigate those systems that sometimes can be a little bit
frustrating for them. All right. So talk to me about the theme for Parent Month this month. What's that about and how have you been expressing that?
So Be the Influence was actually a campaign that we launched 3 years ago. We believe that parents were not necessarily the persons the children were being influenced by, especially in this here 21st century.
That's true.
When you're bombarded with so much information, it is the information age, then sometimes our children are not filtering through the information because based on their age and stage of development, they probably don't even have the capacities to filter through. So we wanted parents to be empowered, have all the information so they could be the influence in their children's lives. Because if you don't know what's happening,
That's true.
You can't influence your children. Many times there were also social miscreants who would have been the influence, and we don't want
That's true.
that.
Yeah, I mean, if they're not being supervised by the parents and whoever is paying them attention is who's growing them. So, yeah.
That's right. And sometimes it's not even that. Supervision is going to look very differently. It's not just staying in a space and not being active, not being present. Because you and I could be in this space, and I'm still not here. I'm still not present.
Some of them have roommates, not really parents.
So we want you to be intentional and active and be interested in everything your children are doing so you can influence their decisions. So year 1, we said, lead by example, encourage dreams, and what was the third one? Get involved. Get involved. And these were primarily related to school. We wanted parents to understand that their involvement in schools matter. They must know what the curriculum is dictating. They must know what clubs or curricular activities the children want to be involved in. They must be interested in who their children are in terms of their own gifts and talents, so they can help the teacher to plan properly for that child. So that's what we said, get involved. We also said encourage dreams, because you also should not put limits on your children. Your children can be anything that they want to be. And the last one, lead by example. You can't just tell them what not to do. You must model it.
That's true.
It's better to show, because children learn best through modeling. By 2018 now, we realized that there were 3 persistent issues, no matter where we went, no matter what discussions we were having. We noticed there was Planned Parenthood. We got to many calls and many scenarios at our office where very young people were pregnant. And we believe that the prospective parent is age 9, because 9-year-olds are being exposed to sexual activity.
That's depressing, even though
yes,
I cannot.
but
It's probably true when you really think about it.
If your body is mature enough and at 9 years old you're being initiated into sexual activity, then you can become pregnant. So your prospective parent, we believe that this time is about 9 years old.
Wow.
But parenting is something you have to plan for. It takes such skills. I heard you say in the preamble that there are no manuals. We have a whole lot of manuals, so that people are not accessing them.
Right. I'd love to see some.
Yeah,
make sure you give them
I'll bring them to you. Oh, we've been
give them to Jubilee, and you, as soon as the child is born,
but even before
here's
that,
a manual. But
even before that, I think it's important that we get to the prospective parents so they know what to expect, to have real conversations with them, because this is not something anybody should just take on without a plan.
That's true.
So Planned Parenthood was one of the pillars. And then, of course, lean, purple drank. We talked about substance abuse. We were very concerned that our children were using very over-the-counter cough syrup and 2 other things that I don't like to mention, because I feel you don't want to give them the ingredients,
right? Actually, I had the Parent National Drug Council, Council of Drug Abuse, and they explained what lean is, what it does, how they, and so on. But
so we saw that popping up in some schools, mainly in Kingston. But, we didn't want it to spread, so we had to nip it in the bud.
And if you've been paying attention, people, weed brownies and weed cookies are the latest craze. You know what I mean?
And also the vaping.
Right, exactly.
That's the other thing that NCDA has advised me, causes liquid lungs and other things. So that's something we've also talked about and we continue to talk about. And, of course, we said strike a conversation, not your child. We want you to parent in a positive way. So instead of reaching for the strap, reach for a conversation, because my big thing is that every behavior is triggered by something. There are antecedents. And we have to, beating is abuse.
But what about the parents who will tell you that...
And I'm not shifting in my chair because I'm uncomfortable. I'm very comfortable saying that. Beating is abuse. And we want our parents to go and probe so that they find out what the antecedents are. What are the triggers for these behaviors? Because when you see a behavior, believe me, something is triggering it.
What about those who will tell you that, well, I got beaten and that's how I turned out just fine. I'm a great, I'm well adjusted and I'm a great citizen. I pay my taxes. I don't commit crimes and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
That doesn't mean emotionally you're okay. It doesn't mean psychologically, mentally you're okay. We hear that all the time. When we go to workshops, that's the first thing that parents say. But by the time you do a survey with them, which is a part of our workshops, they start chronicling some incidents of beating that clearly they're emotionally scarred by. But because they believe that they're well adjusted, because they can hold down a job,
right,
and they're not committing crimes, they believe that you're okay. And this is where mental health also comes into play, because our
Agreed.
mental well-being is important, our emotional well-being is important. So even though your parents might have used a tool they knew, it doesn't mean that it was correct. And I think that's a part of it, because in Jamaica, we revere our parents, especially our moms.
That's true.
That's how we were taught. Well, let me say in the time I grew up, because more things are changing.
Things are changing a little bit.
But we
yeah.
certainly, as a culture, were taught to revere our parents. There was something about mommy, and we hear it in popular folklore, in popular music. Something about mama, it's almost sacred. So for you to admit that mama did something that was emotionally scarring is hard for you to admit.
That's true.
Because you feel as if you're saying something bad against mama.
That's true, yeah.
And so we take persons through that particular journey, and then it leads to some kind of catharsis in our workshops, because then they come to terms on their own that, okay, but I didn't like it. And if I didn't like it, then why am I perpetuating this particular method of quote-unquote discipline? You know?
Yeah.
And the
Alright.
other thing with corporal punishment that we get to is that the Bible says, and I have taken
Spare
issue
the
publicly.
rod
I've
spoil
taken
the
issue with
child.
that all the time, that the rod was not meant to beat, it was meant to guide. And I know I've been taken to task publicly with it.
I mean,
You're
some would
supposed to
say it was
coach.
meant for both.
No,
You
to
know?
guide, to coach, to train up a child.
And to be
Right.
so,
I
I'm
know,
just
not
playing
to
devil's
beat.
advocate here,
No.
but you know, many parents just be like, look,
positive parenting is it. We're just too aggressive. We have to move away from that
All
modality.
right. I want to show some love to the people online. We're getting a couple of comments in, especially people on IG. Thank you very much for
Yes.
tuning in. Chrissy G says, so with all of this commendable effort being made, how do you measure your success? How many of the parents you encounter are implementing what you have been exposing them to?
That's such a good question. Thank you for that, Chrissy. You know, we are now at the point where we'll do an impact evaluation. But I can tell you that I know there's impact. So, for example, we just graduated 1,500 parents who have touched 5,000 households in a path parenting project. And by their own stories and through our own home visits and or note-taking, because we collect data, we see day to day, and by the way, we don't announce home visits. We see their own parenting change totally. When you go to these graduation ceremonies, for example, or when you interact daily with these parents, it is so emotional for them.
And these are graduation ceremonies for the parenting seminars and stuff that you do.
All right. So, for example, this one that I mentioned, these parents who are recipients of the path, they're beneficiaries of path payments. Then, they went through a 6-month program, 1,500 of them. And when you see how their own lives have changed, when you see how their parenting skills have just improved, it is amazing. So we know there's impact. In our day-to-day operations, because we do have persons we call parent mentors too, who we assign to work specifically with other parents. When you hear their own stories having gone through our program, talking about the parent mentors, and why that becomes the impetus for them to give back, for them to give peer-to-peer support, because we don't pay them. Their lives have changed. So there's no doubt in my mind. I think in Jamaica, I've heard it said very publicly, that it's all about the numbers. But sometimes the numbers don't tell you quality.
That's true.
So I might have done 1,500 or 15 million things, but what's the quality behind it? We can quality assure programs because these programs absolutely change lives. CSJP, the parenting component, that program that we have now inherited, so it's now institutionalized. When you hear those parents, when they talk about how they used to parent, especially as it relates to coercive parenting, which involves spanking, and how even from their own children, how their lives have changed. When you hear from our parents how more involved they are in education, when you hear that through the commission, several of them have got up and decided that they're going to go to JFLL to learn to read because they believe if they're now literate, they're better able to help their children, or if they can read, they're now able to help their children. Nobody asked them to go. They just saw the value of what we were saying. So we have seen every day and documented. But I think being 6 years old, we have done impact evaluations for several programs. But I think now, being 6 years old is a good time to do an impact evaluation of the entity as a whole.
Just gauge overall effectiveness and so on.
But I stand by it. We have built out our programs now. I mean, I celebrate this. I'm really happy. I don't know if you can be proud and humbled all together. I mean, I'm pretty humbled by what we've accomplished, especially the last 2.5 years. We've really cascaded the programs across the country. We're creating a wave in this country, a groundswell. We're moving quietly.
I really hope so, because you know, I like I was telling before, I really personally do believe that parenting is one of the biggest and most important jobs that people do, because creating a well-adjusted human is perhaps one of the most important things.
It has to be the most
because
important
thing. If it's done well, you can create, you practically guarantee the future of the generation. If it's not done well, you have people who are literally out there trying to destroy society.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And if we don't make efforts to make sure that we grow people up who are actively interested in maintaining and uplifting and
so now you know
society.
why we're in this quandary.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So just last night I got a call from an education officer in Region 4. There was a workshop being conducted at Bethel Primary and Junior High. And she said to me, she asked a question, and one enthused person stood and really delved into it and shared and so on. And as it turns out, it was a parent mentor. And she said, I'm a parent mentor with the National Parenting Support Commission right down there in Hanover. So we've built out the program. In fact, on the 28th of November, we'll graduate 146 of them who have now gone through their 13-week program, done a practicum. They have done their, they have been applying what they have learned in the field, and now we're going to graduate and certify them. So this makes me happy because we're going to have mentors in spaces where we've never had them before. 9 more parishes
right. Definitely.
that we've never had
places
them before.
That, absolutely necessary.
And they're now going to be giving peer-to-peer support to other parents. So it's a beautiful question she asked, but I'm happy. I think we really have been making impact, and like I said, we do have the evidence.
All right. And there's somebody's like, taking Chrissy G also, same Chrissy G, thank you for your previous question. Miss Kerr really appreciated that. She might not appreciate this one so much though. She says, beating if done the correct way is not abuse, in her opinion.
If done the correct way, there's no correct way to beat. It is abuse. Beating, using caustic language with your children, it is abuse. It is abuse. So whether you spank lightly or you spank firmly, you've abused your child. And I know it's very difficult for parents to accept because they're thinking this is one modality to correct a behavior. But it is abuse. I stand with UNICEF on this one. I stand with well-thinking people on this one. We have to move away from it. It is abuse.
All right. Now, over on Facebook, Leota McDonald tuning in has several comments. Appreciate them, Leota. Thank you very much for tuning in. Saying this is where parenting comes from, in the home. They learn from what we teach them. So she's just reinforcing that parents need to step up and play an active role in raising their children because naturally they are the biggest influence on the children's lives. Yeah, I hope I pronounced this right. Please don't hold it against me. Yahi Idris Thomas. Okay. Saying
I can't help you.
He's saying, I remember hearing, but my parents never practiced to beat me because my ears work well. Well, very good for you. That means you're a very good child. I hope you keep it up.
But let's not even gloss over that. There's something about communication too that's important.
Right.
Understanding what the rules are, why they were put in place, understand the ramifications of not following those rules. And I don't, like I said the last time, I don't even like that word. The expectations.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Because
it's
we're
a
talking
heavy
about
word.
Positive parenting. So what are these expectations? Why have you put these boundaries in place? So it's just more than the ears working. It's the child understanding why the rules were there. Because more often than not, the boundaries are there to protect them.
That's true, but children have a hard time understanding that word, boundaries. I don't think they like that word at all.
But they're supposed to. It's a part of the growth process. So that's what parents also need to understand. They're here to test us. It's a part of the growth
you
process.
just say that so lightly. They're here to
but
test us.
they're supposed to test. They're supposed to push because that's a part of their own development. It's how they're going to understand life, how they're going to figure out. No, they can't figure out everything for themselves, mind you. But some things you also give them an opportunity to self-correct too. Because some things you'll allow them. You know, some people said you buck your toe.
Yeah, you have to kind of buck your toe to kind of, you know.
Some things.
All right. And Ricardo Portius, one of our consistent viewers. Thank you, Ricardo. Thank you for tuning in. Says tomorrow's his birthday. Well, happy birthday when it comes. Really
happy
hope
birthday,
you do
Ricardo.
have a good one. You know what I mean? And thanks for spending this time with us. We really do appreciate it. Right? Fabian Spencer says good job. So he's giving you beginning up and telling I'm doing a good job. I like the work that you guys
That's
are doing.
Fabian?
Yes,
Thank
Fabian
you, Fabian.
Spencer. All right. Now, I think I'm ready to put these parenting situations to you just to see how you can test them, because I just feel like, hey, you know, parenting in 2019 is a whole lot different. It's a different ball game. All right. Scenario number 1. Your teenager comes to you and says, Mom, Dad, Mommy, Daddy, I think I want to start having sex and I don't want to hide it from you. How can I do this in a way that you won't be upset? How does a parent react to that kind of scenario?
Well, firstly, I would first commend the child for being that honest and upfront. I want to also dispel some person's opinions of who we are as human beings. We're first created sexual beings. And so having sexual urges, sexual feelings is a part of the process, is a part of being human. Sometimes these conversations are difficult because that part of our whole physiology is something that we don't want to talk about. But by design, we're created sexual beings. So if your teenager were to come to you to say, Mommy, Daddy, this is what I'm feeling, and I believe I would want to first put the teenager through the rigors to find out what does she know about sex and sex, or he, about sex and sexuality, okay? What are some of the things that could happen when you choose this? Because they must understand that once you engage, it becomes another responsibility. You're talking about potentials for STIs, STDs, pregnancy. So we're going to talk about what are some of the things that could happen, right? We're also going to delve to find out why is it that you're coming to this, because sometimes it's peer pressure because everybody around is doing it.
Right.
Sometimes it's pressure from the boyfriend or the girlfriend. So you need to find out, is there some pressure here? Why? Why now? Why not delay? Okay? Now, sometimes your parents who don't have the language, they would reach first for anger.
That's true.
So it's
that's
very
almost
important,
expected, I mean, to be honest.
So it's also very important that if you believe that this is a situation that is going to anger you, let's see if you could come to some agreement with the child to delay the conversation and perhaps bring in a third party who the person respects, who the child respects and you respect. But let's say this child is adamant that he or she want to find out the age, because the teenagers are range, right?
That's true.
Anything under 16.
Yeah, I mean, let's say 16 let's say
illegal.
17, because we're not promoting any criminal activity
so we have
on
to
here.
Also, but you see,
even though you just mentioned that the age of introduction is around 9 years old, and I mean, you know, that's horrible.
Yes.
But, you know, at the same time, we're not promoting. That's not something that we're going to really. That's criminal.
No,
that's
we're not. But the reality is that somebody who has not reached 16 years could very well come to the parent.
That's true.
And say that. So if the child is under 16 years old, the conversation takes another turn, because we have to look at the legal ramifications too. Because I can't give you consent, and you really ought not to, because you're committing a crime. That's really what it is.
Exactly.
If the child is 16 years or over, you really have to sit that child down, like I said before, to talk about it. Now, what if the child is still insistent? Then I would say then you're going to have to teach the child about responsible habits, because I am a realist too, okay? If a child comes to you 16, 17, 18 years and say, Mommy, I am going to, and the child is adamant, and you would have ruled out everything. It's not peer pressure. It is not some older person trying to
seduce
that's
them
peer.
or whatever. Well, yeah, that's a different thing.
Initiate
But yeah,
them.
yeah, you get the idea.
And once you've ruled out all of those things, if it's just a fantasy, then that's something that's better. But what if this child is adamant that, look here, this is an experience, then we're going to have to figure out how are we going to ensure that you're being safe and you're being responsible as you take on, because this is what it is. This is now a huge responsibility. And how are you going to make sure that this doesn't impact you for the rest of your life in a negative way, right? How are you going to make sure that by engaging in this and the pressures that come with that, it doesn't impact like school and your future plans. So there's a whole discussion that needs to take place. And of course, the spiritual component need to put your body is a temple of God.
Right.
It sounds old-fashioned, but it is. What if it doesn't work out with this person who you're going to give your most precious self to? What if it doesn't work out? Then does it mean that we're going to move on to a second to see if it work out, and a third? I mean, what does that make you, young man?
Or girl.
I said that.
Giving
I
us
said that on
side-eye-
purpose
side-eyeing
because
us
all of
over
you are
here.
thinking, "Oh, it has to be a girl." Because
No, I'm thinking it could be either one because it
Well,
goes
let's
both
face
ways.
It,
yeah.
but in society, the boy gets a leeway. That's why I said
Yeah,
it on
that's true.
purpose.
They do
It's
get-
like you get a
yeah,
pass.
yeah.
But what does this make you, young man, that you're going through, a young woman, that you're going through these many relationships? Because many times at 16, 17, 18, it's puppy love, it's infatuation. Now, when infatuation wears off, that's when true love begins.
That's true.
And true love, hear what the Bible says, love is patient.
That-
Love is
those
kind.
words are kind of
Love is-
inconsistent with
love- I mean,
teenage,
right? So
teenage
it's
emotions
usually
at
it's
the time.
just infatuation.
Yeah.
So you see this person who is just your dream, but 2 weeks later you might see somebody else who is
Yeah,
a
nightmare.
better dream
Yeah.
or a better dream. So you have to think about all of that, and just to understand that these are tumultuous years. You get all kinds of information, you get all kinds of feelings. The feelings
right.
sometimes pass. How did I do?
Not too bad.
Ah,
I
he
I
says
expected
not
you
too
to,
bad.
well, let me just stick up in real quick. Chrissy G. Thanks, Chrissy G. She's asking, how does she become a parent mentor? She's in St. James. If there's training involved, how long is the training, and how does she, go about the process?
Oh, Chrissy, we just trained 2 cohorts down there. But of course, we're always going to be training. So you just have to contact us, 967-7977. Our phone lines are working again. So you could call us and just leave your information with any of our persons who answer the phone.
All right.
967-7977. We just trained 2 cohorts who will graduate on the 28th of November. Yay.
All right, great. So, Chrissy, hopefully you'll be among the next set of trainees, and you will be playing your part down in St. James and helping us to raise up some nice parents. And there are those there, but just create more
So
and
to
more and
be more
more.
effective.
A
That's what we
groundswell,
say.
yeah?
To be more effective.
Yeah.
Yes, we all need help.
All right. So, all right. Yeah, Idris Thomas, please forgive me if I'm mispronouncing that. Give me some help. If you can message me and tell me how I'm supposed to pronounce that, right?
Yes.
She says, if the body is a temple of the Lord, like you just said, so what does God say about the issue? So that seems to be that person's take on that first scenario.
What does it, what?
It says, what does the God say about the issue? Meaning, I would imagine underage sex as children. that
Right,
kind
I
of thing.
mean,
But yeah.
but there's a prescription there that it's prescribed that you do not enter outside of marriage.
Right.
So, right.
All right,
So
so
that's
let me
the other
move
thing.
on. I want to move on now to the next one. Says, come to you and says, Mommy, Daddy, you're probably going to see a video of me on the internet doing something bad. How do you react as a parent? I mean, I don't necessarily want to. I mean, I could
Yes.
prescribe, but I want to move away to something else. So you're gonna see a video of me probably fighting somebody, or see a video of me doing some kind of thing that is just really
So
truly
this
horrible,
person
yeah?
is really planning to do it, or it has.
No, the person has
it
done it
happened
already, or the person, let's
and
say the
the
person
warning.
didn't know that they were being filmed and was filmed and is uploaded to the internet and it's gone viral, and so you're like, no, Mommy, Daddy, something you're going to see something with me
Yes.
on the internet.
Well, if
You know?
they never had the conversation about responsible behavior and what's socially acceptable behavior, then
But it's a peer pressure, like, one of these peer pressure
I
moments.
know,
You just have a moment of weakness, you do something.
right. So let's say the conversation was never had, right? This is a wonderful time to have it, so it doesn't occur. It doesn't reoccur. What I would say to that person is, look, whatever is in cyberspace remains there. Whatever is put out there, no matter who tells you they've deleted it, it's out there for life. So you're now going to have to think about, what does that mean for you in the future when you're trying to get a job? Or even if you're entrepreneurial and you want to start your own business, you might need a partner. Because, are these behaviors going to influence those decisions? Because whether we like it or not, I know many persons go first online to see what's happening with persons before they even get to the interviewing chair. They're scoring the internet. Sometimes when you've applied for higher learning, people vet to see, are you the kind of person I want in my program? Will you add to my institution? So those are conversations pre or post that certainly parents have to be having with their children, and not to take it lightly. Whatever you put out there is really there forever.
Right, so let's say the
you
horse
want to be
gone
responsible with your image.
The horse gone through the gate.
Well,
we
if the
didn't have
horse
that
has gone,
conversation, and boy, you're going to see something with me. I do this, that, and the third on the internet, mommy. Well, what does this mean? What am I going to do?
So then, at this point, you're just going to have to deal with whatever comes, because that's what it is.
Yeah, well, I mean,
it's out there
that's
already.
true.
There's nothing you can do if it's out there. There's nothing you can do. You're now going to have to deal. What I would encourage, though, is that the parents continue to guide, and support, and use that as a teachable moment, right? There are things that they can do depending on how bad it is in terms of a negative reward to prevent that from happening again. But you have to teach. Putting a smartphone in your hand means I have now given you responsibility. You have to use this responsibly. Think about every time you press send.
All right. Yaya Idris. That's how you pronounce it. Yaya Idris. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Appreciate that. All right. Next scenario. Child comes to you and says, Mommy, I don't think this school thing is for me. This never make no sense. I can go on YouTube, watch some courses and learn some things and start make some money. Why I need to go to school and do all of that? Why I need to say, why you wasting money sending me to school when I can go on YouTube, learn a few courses, teach myself some things, start earn some money and earn a living? Why do I need to go to school? I don't want to go to school anymore.
So this person is thinking that they can teach themselves via YouTube.
Go on YouTube,
and
learn a few skills, make a little money and don't need to go to school.
On YouTube. But we are at this stage where certification is also important. And this is a wonderful time for somebody like that, because you have a qualifications framework that the Ministry of Education has been promulgating. And it gives you certification for the skills you have acquired. So if you've gone on YouTube, you would go through that, I think it's hard that you'd go through to let them come and do an assessment of you. And then you could get your certification based on the skills that you have acquired and the level of that skill. So I don't know, schooling in general, we have to look at it outside of the professional definitions of what school is supposed to be, that you have to sit down physically in a classroom with chalk and talk. I think we've moved away from that. There's so many good things on YouTube, and other universities have courses online where people can actually stay at home and acquire skills. So I wouldn't bash it too much. I would say to that parent, be open to it, but there has to also be some kind of certification. If you're going to go on YouTube or any other platform to acquire a skill, you should get certification for it. And a certificate that has value.
I suppose you're right, but then the person was like, but yeah, I'm building my client base now, word of mouth, I'm doing all right. Yes, but
it doesn't matter what skill you have. I am not going to come to you to access your service if I did not see that you're competent.
But that's the thing. Let's say for argument's sake.
So my girlfriend, for example, went to the beauty salon some time ago, and this person never had training. Well, she has lost her hair.
Oh, God.
Right? So the person's been there, but you need somebody to say, because oh my goodness, it's like the wasp and the bee, right? So the bee said, come wasp, come let me teach you to make honey. By the time I got to a little part of it, the wasp said, oh yeah, I got it. does wasp make honey? No.
No,
There you
they
go.
don't make
So we have to make sure.
So
That's a bad
essentially,
analogy.
I get what you're saying,
it a
though.
bad analogy?
It kind of is. I'd buy a drink. You'd have to buy us all drinks in here. If we're
Well,
at
it's
the
the
bar.
best
Whatever.
one I could find. But the whole point is that you want to make sure, too, that even when you access those courses on YouTube, they're courses that have been authorized by competent persons, because anybody can put together something.
No, that's the thing.
And call
And
it
it
a
almost seems
course.
like that's the beauty about YouTube. Whether or not the person is credible or whatever, if you watch it and I learn something and I'm able to use that and do, for example, do a mock-up and I give it to you and you say, boy, this mock-up look
But
brilliant,
how
man.
competent are you really at it? Because there are different levels in terms of
suppose you're
acquiring
right.
skills, right? So I want to make sure that when I'm done, I have the best skill sets so that I can market myself. Because I'm not going to come to you, Vaughn, and give you my hard-earned money if afterwards.
But what if I do really good work?
Well, if you do really good work, why wouldn't you want the certification?
Because that I go take time and we can make money while I study.
But after you have done the course, it's just a matter of going to heart. That I have found hard to be.
So rather just basic, what you're saying is essentially having acquired information, just go and get yourself certified.
Yes, they will look
you
at
know
what
I'm
it
saying?
is that, and I'm sure they will evaluate and see what level of certification you're to get.
All right, so then the big question
Can I
is...
tell you, wait a minute, I beg your pardon, we actually do that. So we have parents who have skills, have acquired through many media. And through our parent places, we have had heart come in to certify them based on those skills. But at least they now have the very important certification from that all-important entity.
Which is true.
So
But
that's very important.
The person says,
So
you know
now
what,
they
I
can-
don't want to go high school anymore. I'll go hard. Take my time, stay at home, learn this stuff, and then
But
we
there's
arrange to
also,
go to heart and
there's
stuff like
also a very sophisticated homeschool network, in this
that.
country.
That's true. That is
So
true.
many
That is
children.
very true.
I have actually met children. I remember one child years ago. She was coming into that kind of public education system for the first time at grade 9. She did exceptionally well. One of the reasons she stood out to was how disciplined she was. Yes, because when you're homeschooled, you're very structured. And that's what discipline is, structure. So in terms of being able to adapt and adjust, they do very well. So there's a very sophisticated homeschool system in Jamaica.
All right. So let me just shift on. All right. So you're trying to find a way to navigate both, but don't. I mean, as we say, you have many traditional parents who are be like, "School is school. You're not doing anything. You go school."
It
You know what I
takes
mean?
a whole conversation, because what if the child is going to the regular traditional way to access education, but there's really no access in education because the child goes to school, is not interested in anything,
Yeah, and
is not
that's
doing
a
anything,
legitimate
starts
concern
giving
nowadays.
trouble. Right, but there are other options for schooling. I'm serious. There are other ways to get your child educated.
All right. So there you have parents.
So you
There's
have
ways
to-
to
you have to think
there are ways to
there's a-
navigate the
the-
situation
yeah, absolutely.
nowadays.
The Independent Schools Association, they have a homeschool, very, very structured. And like I said, I've known several children. In fact, through that program, many of the children I have met have been accelerated. Because sometimes, let's face it, children want to move at a pace that our system doesn't necessarily accommodate.
That's true.
They want to move at another
faster because they're faster there.
Absolutely. So this is one way to also accelerate them. Sometimes what we see as persons not being interested, it's not really because they are lackadaisical, they don't care about anything. It's really because they don't feel challenged enough.
That's
and
true.
so they want a system that is more flexible so they can be accelerated. Sometimes these children are gifted,
That's true. That's another conversation we've been having. But all right, last one, and then we can move to wrap. Just show some more love to people online. But last one, your 19, your 20-year-old daughter, who perhaps is not necessarily religious minded, says she's seen the examples of the young girls on Instagram and Facebook who are making good money by posing all kind of explicit pics and say, well, I wouldn't say explicit, but sexy pics, if you will. And, not necessarily naked, but these outfits. And they amass these large followings, and then based on that, they're able to monetize it by advertising this, that, and the third. Daughter comes up and says, Mommy, this looks like an opportunity. I'm attractive. I can take these pics and I can make some money doing it. I think I want to do it. What do you think?
Well, at 20 years old, that's an adult.
Exactly.
So at this point, yes, you're soliciting
They're an
my
adult,
advice.
but really.
But you're soliciting my advice. I'm going to give you my advice. But whatever you decide to do, that is on you, and you have to bear the consequences of
Yeah,
that.
well, an adult that lives
Because-
under your roof more than likely is still having you pay their bills, pay their lifestyle,
but
fund
you're
their
still an
lifestyle. So
adult.
on.
At 20 years old, I would have done my job in terms of helping you to formulate the right values, the right attitudes. Now, if you have decided that this is something you want to do, then I'm going to advise you, I'm going to tell you what I think, that perhaps this is not something, perhaps you can think of other ways to make money. But what if you're adamant? At 20 years old, you're an adult. So you're now going to have to deal with the ramification, because at some point, we have to give you the assessment. So I am training you. I am being the best parent I know. I have gone to workshops. I have read all the books. I have upped my skills, if you will. And I have done the best by you. You know what our system of values look like. Now, if you decide to deviate from that, then whatever it is you decide is on you. I can only at 20 say, look, I don't think that this is the way to go. But if you are adamant, then you have to deal with the ramifications.
I feel like I'm going to lower the age and say that, let's say 17.
17 years old.
Older than
Well,
old enough
17
to
years old, you're still-
young enough to
still
be
a
a parent
child,
and
still a child, still a
but
child.
old enough that it's not necessarily, well, depending on our laws and the age of consent, etc., etc., etc. It's not necessarily unlawful, but at the same time it would be frowned upon. But still,
It is scoffed
in a
at,
position where
yes.
they would be earning money from doing this kind of thing and feeling independent, that kind of thing. Because notwithstanding what they're doing, they would feel like, oh, I'm earning my own money. I'm taking in the like say I'm in my own room taking these pictures and uploading them. I'm not going out there and being photographed and I feel like I'm being way too detailed and I'm giving young ladies ideas. I hope not. But still, you get the idea.
Listen, at 17 years old and you're still growing, you're still trying to understand life. The pressures are real, the pressures are out there. But it doesn't mean that because you see persons doing that this is the route you have to go. You have to remember the route, rather. You have to remember now that there are many other skill sets that you have. Why not let us tap into some other things? Let's look at what else is out there. Look at the whole lot of skills that you have, and let's see what else we could be doing. So I would really help to coach you to finding something else, finding an alternative, because I don't think anybody is skilled in any one way. Oh, this is the only skill you have.
No, obviously
Right,
not. But I mean,
many
just from the
skills.
standpoint of
I'd
be able to start earning my own money and being on my own time
yes,
and blah, blah, blah.
earning money, but at what cost?
I suppose.
At what cost? Sometimes we compromise a little too much for money. So let's think about it now. At 17 years old, you have so much ahead of you. And we don't know how doing this could affect what you could eventually be. So let us look at the other skill sets that you have. And let's see how together we could look at earning money. I don't even know, at 17 years old, you should be so caught up in earning money.
Well, I mean, but this, unfortunately,
I know,
with the
we're
bling
very
lifestyle
entrepreneurial.
not even
You
so much
know?
as the bling lifestyle, the videos, the thing, and you want to be able to wear the fanciest clothes and the nicest shoes, attend the best parties, that kind of thing. So you want to have the money in your pocket to allow you to do it.
Yeah, but I also give a dramatic pause, because you have brought up an issue that I need to go back to my friends at Ministry of Labour about. As soon as I'm finished, I'm going to check, because I want to be clear as to what those labour laws say about and the age group. I do have the literature, but not on me, unfortunately.
I mean, it is kind of a grey area if you think about it.
Remember,
because
17 years old, what the laws say. I'll talk to my friends at Ministry of Labour as I'm finished here. But in any case, I would want to think that there are other ways that are more wholesome and that are more socially acceptable. Because remember, you have your whole life ahead of you. And at 17 years old, you put something out there, like I said before,
so there
you
go.
have to be able to deal with that for the rest of your life.
All right, sounds like
And we're
you've
looking
used-
about 310 at least.
Yeah,
At least.
It seems like you've really been committed to this non-corporal punishment approach. So there are
So why
many
would you wanna-
parents
why
who
would
be
you
like,
want to be beating for any
it's like,
of these?
what?
No.
What do you mean you want to take off your clothes? Psh, psh, that kind of thing. And then,
No. But I tell you something, I don't know that beating helps. I've seen many situations where children have been beaten up and down the wazoo. They still go and do the same thing.
That is true. They just
So
take the punishment.
sometimes you have to, like I said, if this person has seen her friends doing it, then the trigger here is because your friends are doing it.
Yeah, I suppose.
That's no reason to take such a big decision that could impact your life. You're doing it only because you see other people doing it.
Perhaps.
No.
All right, there's so much more we could talk about, and I would like you viewers and commenters to just share a few of similar scenarios, and we can link up with Miss Kerr and see if we can make sure we get her opinion, because parenting in 2019 is a whole lot different than parenting back in like 1999
I agree.
or 1989, that kind of thing. Some things are similar, but they're quite different with this new social media and information age. So
Just
things are
technology
changing.
in general. I mean, how fast it's going. It's crazy.
All right.
Yes.
And just to go back to the topic of discussion, which is the National Parent Month, which is November. The theme this year is Be the Influence. So the idea is to get you as parents. I mean, this is your job. This is what you're supposed to do anyway. But at the end of the day, it's very important to remind them to be the influence.
Yes, make sure
Children
you're the
live what they
primary
learn.
guide for your child's behaviors.
Children live what they learn. You are the first and foremost teacher.
Yes.
Right. And if they see you do it, best believe it's okay for them to do it. All right, so big up to Yaya, Idris, all the comments is saying every cause has its effects and it's not all good. So think deeply about the future effects of your choices as we was looking into the scenarios that we were outlining. And he's another good point saying money is not everything.
That's right.
So don't sell your soul for money.
That's right.
And all these things are lifestyle choices. It's important to make sure that you think long term as a parent. That's the idea. Make sure your children understand that you're thinking about right now. In the future, things have consequences, so pay attention.
I know the young people are in haste to get everything now.
Because how are you going to post it on Instagram if you don't have it now? You have to post it on Instagram so everybody can see it and like it, and then tell you, say, I live the high life.
So it's really for affirmation then.
Yes, of course.
So that means that it also tells me how important, even more important for us to be the influence. The affirmation should come from your parents, your mom and your dad. You really don't need those strangers out there who are living their best pretense life to be affirming you. Many of the things that you see, these are just
they're fake, but you know what? That's many people are not young enough to appreciate that it's fake.
And that is why we have to keep talking and keep guiding. And showing real life examples of these things, because many of the things you see out there, it's not so.
I mean, I wish I could.
There's a story behind every life.
That's true.
And what you see, trust me, is not this story.
I wish I could big up every person who joined in and waved on our live on Instagram. But thank you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it, especially Chrissy G. I hope you do follow up with the NPSC and become a parent mentor and play your part in helping to, uplift the quality of parenting all across the country. We really do thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate that. It seems like this might be the push that got you in that direction.
Very good,
I'm sure Ms.
Chrissy.
Kerr is really appreciative
Absolutely.
of that. All right, thank you everyone for tuning in. We really, really appreciated having you here and tuning into our discussion. It has been our pleasure just going through this issue and sharing through it with you. As I said before, if you have any unusual scenarios, parenting scenarios, 2019 parenting scenarios, I want you to share them so we can have a forum, maybe another forum with like this with Ms. Kerr. We can talk about it and get even more feedback on how we should be trying to parent in 2019, because there are a whole host of different challenges that children are facing nowadays.
Yeah.
And remember, our audience plays a major part in our show. So if there's anyone you'd like for us to have in studio, let us know, and we'll do our best to have that person in studio as soon as possible. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Jamaica Information Service. We're there where there's a whole host of information that you can get by following us, and we really appreciate your your click, everything that you do, because we do this for you so that we can empower you to live your best life so you can raise up the quality of this country. We do this mostly on Thursdays, but it's Wednesday, and we thank you for tuning in with us. I've been your host, Vaughn Davis, and this has been Studio 58A Live. Thank you again for joining us, and please have a wonderful day.